Commander Vexthera stood on the bridge of the Imperial Survey ship Eternal Dawn, looking at the holographic display that showed a small yellow star ahead. Her blue scales shimmered under the soft lights as she studied the readings. This was supposed to be a simple mission: find new worlds, check if they had intelligent life, and report back to the Empire. The Zephyrian Galactic Empire had been doing this for thousands of years. They had found 847 worlds with civilized species. Some were welcomed into the Empire. Others were removed if they seemed dangerous. It was always the same process. "Commander," said Science Officer Kethamora from his station. His voice was calm, but Vexthera could hear something different in it. "We have found something unusual." Vexthera walked over to his console. The readings showed a solar system with several planets. One of them was blue and green, clearly full of life. "What makes it unusual?" she asked. "The third planet from the star shows signs of intelligent life," Kethamora replied. "But the environmental readings are disturbing." Military advisor Zarnuk looked up from his station. His red eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Define disturbing," he said in his rough voice. Kethamora touched the controls, and new information appeared on the main screen. The planet experiences violent weather storms. The ground shakes regularly from internal forces. Much of the plant life produces toxins. There are predatory animals everywhere. The very air in some areas can kill. Vexthera studied the data. In her long career, she had seen many worlds, but this one was different. "This is classified as a death world," she said slowly. "How could intelligent life develop here?" "That is what puzzles me," Kethamora admitted. "By all our models, complex intelligence should be impossible on such a planet. Yet the scans clearly show a bipedal species that has achieved spaceflight." Zarnuk stood up and moved closer to the display. His military training made him always look for threats first. "Show me their technology level," he demanded. The screen changed to show images of the planet's surface. Cities covered parts of the land. Vehicles moved along roads. Aircraft flew through the skies. "They have achieved basic space travel," Kethamora explained. "Several artificial structures orbit their planet, but they have not moved beyond their own star system yet." "Primitive, then," Zarnuk said with relief. "Not a threat to the Empire." But Vexthera was not so sure. She had learned to trust her instincts over many years of service. Something about this discovery felt wrong. "Begin standard observation protocols," she ordered. "Full behavioral analysis. I want to know everything about these creatures before we make any decisions." The crew began their work. The Eternal Dawn moved to a position where they could watch the planet without being detected. Their advanced technology made this easy. They had done it hundreds of times before. Kethamora started analyzing the species themselves. "They call themselves humans," he reported. "Bipedal mammals, average height about 1.7 meters. They have only 4 limbs and limited natural weapons. No claws, no armor plating, no venom glands." "How did they become the dominant species?" Vexthera asked. This was becoming more puzzling by the hour. "Unknown at this time," Kethamora replied. "They appear to be physically weak compared to many other species on their planet. Large predators could easily kill individual humans, yet somehow they control the entire planet." Zarnuk studied the tactical information. "Show me their weapons," he said. The display filled with images of human weapons. Zarnuk's expression grew more confused as he watched. "These are primitive projectile weapons mostly," he said. "Some energy-based systems, but nothing that could threaten our ships. Yet..." "Yet what?" Vexthera prompted. "They have weapons capable of destroying large areas of their own planet," Zarnuk said slowly. "Why would a species build weapons that could kill themselves?" This was indeed strange. In all the Empire's records, no intelligent species had ever built weapons capable of destroying their own world. It went against every survival instinct. Kethmora continued his analysis. Their society is complex, he reported. They have divided their planet into territorial sections they call nations. These nations often fight each other, but they also cooperate on certain projects. Fighting is normal, Zarnuk noted. All species compete for resources. Yes, but humans fight over things that are not resources, Kethmora said. They fight over ideas, beliefs, and concepts that have no physical form. I have found records of wars fought over religious differences, political systems, and abstract principles. Vex Thyra felt a chill run down her spine. Species that fought over ideas were unpredictable. The Empire preferred dealing with creatures that followed logical patterns. There is more, Kethmora continued. Humans appear to form emotional attachments to other species. They keep dangerous predators in their homes as companions. They show care and affection for creatures that could easily harm them. That makes no sense, Zarnuk said. Predators are threats. You eliminate threats. Human behavior suggests otherwise, Kethmora replied. They seem to form bonds with almost anything. Plants, animals, even their tools and vehicles. I have observed humans talking to their machines as if they were alive. Vexus Thyra reviewed the data streaming in. The more they learned about humans, the more confused she became. These creatures defied everything the Empire knew about intelligent species development. Continue observations, she ordered. Focus on their history. I want to understand how they became what they are. As the crew worked, Vex Thyra stood alone looking at the blue-green planet below. Something about these humans bothered her deeply. They did not fit any pattern the Empire had seen before. In thousands of years of expansion, the Zephyrians had encountered many types of intelligent life. Some were peaceful traders, others were aggressive warriors, some were advanced scientists, others were primitive hunters. But humans seemed to be something entirely different. They lived on a world that should have killed them. They formed bonds with creatures that should be their enemies. They built weapons that could destroy themselves but chose not to use them. What kind of species survived and thrived in such conditions? And more importantly, what would happen when the Empire made contact with them? Vex Thyra had a feeling that this discovery would change everything the Empire thought it knew about life in the galaxy. The question was whether that change would be good or terrifying. As she watched the planet slowly rotate below them, she could not shake the feeling that they were not just observing the humans anymore. Somehow, she felt like something down there was watching them back. 3 days into their observation, Kethmora was staring at his screens with growing confusion. The human behavioral data made no sense according to everything the Empire knew about intelligent life. "Commander," he called to Vex Thyra, "you need to see this." Vex Thyra approached his station. "What have you found?" "Humans engage in activities that serve no survival purpose," Kethmora said, pulling up video feeds from the planet below. "Watch this!" The screen showed humans running at high speeds for extended periods. They were clearly exhausted and in discomfort, but they continued anyway. Some ran alone, others in groups. None of them appeared to be fleeing from danger or chasing prey. "Why are they running?" Vexithyra asked. "According to their communications, they call it exercise," Kethmora explained. "They deliberately stress their bodies for something they term health and enjoyment." Zarnuk looked over from his tactical station. "That makes no sense. Unnecessary physical stress wastes energy and increases injury risk. It goes against basic survival principles." Kethmora switched to another video feed. "It gets stranger. Observe this behavior they call sports." The new images showed humans engaged in various physical competitions. They threw objects, chased each other, and engaged in controlled combat. The strangest part was that thousands of other humans watched these activities and showed extreme emotional responses to the outcomes. They compete for resources? Vexithyra asked. No, Kethmora replied. The winners receive symbolic rewards and social recognition, but no actual survival benefits. Yet humans invest enormous amounts of time, energy, and resources into these competitions. More data filled the screens. Humans climbing dangerous mountain peaks for no practical reason. Humans deliberately jumping out of flying aircraft with only fabric to slow their fall. Humans diving deep underwater or exploring dangerous caves. They actively seek dangerous situations, Kethmora noted. Not for resources or territory, but for what they describe as adventure and thrill. Zarnuk's scales darkened with confusion. This behavior should have eliminated them through natural selection. Species that take unnecessary risks die out quickly. Yet humans are the dominant species on their planet, Vexthyra observed. How is this possible? Kethmora brought up new data. Their relationship with other species is equally puzzling. Watch this. The screen showed humans interacting with various animals. They fed creatures that provided no obvious benefit. They cared for injured animals that were not food sources. Most disturbing of all, they kept large predators in their homes and showed affection toward them. Those are clearly dangerous creatures, Zarnuk pointed out. Those sharp teeth and claws could easily kill a human. Why would they allow such threats near their offspring? According to human communications, they consider these predators to be companions, Kethmora explained. They use terms like friend and family member to describe them. Vexithyra studied the images carefully. In one video, a human child was playing with a large four-legged predator. The creature could have easily harmed the child, but instead it seemed to be protecting it. Show me more examples, she requested. Kethmora complied, displaying video after video of impossible relationships. Humans caring for creatures that should be their natural enemies. Humans forming emotional bonds with animals, plants, and even non-living objects. They name their vehicles, Kethmora noted. They talk to their machines as if they were alive. They show distress when these objects are damaged or destroyed. Pack bonding, Zarnuk said slowly, but extended beyond any logical limits. What do you mean? Vexthyra asked. Many species form social bonds for survival, Zarnuk explained. But humans seem to form these bonds with everything they encounter. They even create emotional attachments to abstract concepts and fictional characters. Kethmora nodded and brought up new data. Their entertainment media confirms this. They create stories about imaginary people and places, then invest emotional energy in these fantasies. They cry over fictional deaths and celebrate fictional victories. The more they observed, the stranger human behavior became. Humans would risk their lives for complete strangers. They would sacrifice their own resources to help others, even members of different species. Look at this, Kethmora said, showing a video of humans rescuing animals from a natural disaster. They are putting themselves in extreme danger to save creatures that provide them no benefit. Perhaps they plan to eat them later? Zarnuk suggested. No. The rescued animals are relocated to safe areas and released. The humans gain nothing from this activity except what they describe as satisfaction. Vexthyra watched as humans formed chains to pass injured animals to safety. Some humans were clearly hurt in the process, but they continued their efforts anyway. This was not behavior she had seen in any other intelligent species. Their communications during this event are significant, Kethmora added. They speak of moral duty and responsibility for helpless creatures. They appear to believe they have an obligation to protect other life forms. Obligation to whom? Zarnuk asked. That is unclear. They reference various belief systems, but the common element seems to be an internal sense of right and wrong that compels certain behaviors. Vexithyra reviewed more data. Human history was filled with examples of individuals sacrificing themselves for others. Not just family members or tribe members, but complete strangers and even abstract principles. They died for ideas, she said, reading through historical records. Humans have died defending concepts like freedom, justice, and truth. These are not physical things that can be possessed or consumed. It gets more complex, Kethmora said. They also create art, music, and literature about these concepts. They produce creative works that serve no survival function, but appear to bring them emotional satisfaction. The screen filled with examples of human creativity. Paintings that depicted no useful information. Music that conveyed no practical knowledge. Stories that described events that never happened. Why do they waste energy on useless activities? Zarnuk wondered. Perhaps these activities are not useless to them, Vexithyra suggested. Perhaps humans have developed needs beyond basic survival. This was a disturbing thought. All known intelligent species focus primarily on survival, reproduction, and resource acquisition. Humans seem to have additional drives that made no logical sense. There is one more thing, Kethmora said hesitantly. Their response to their own violent history is unusual. He brought up records of human conflicts throughout their history. Wars had raged continuously across their planet for thousands of years. Millions had died in these conflicts. Normal species would learn to avoid such destructive behavior, Zarnuk noted. Humans have learned, Kethmora replied, but their response is complex. They simultaneously glorify warfare in their entertainment while working to prevent it in reality. They honor their warriors while seeking peace. They develop more effective weapons while creating laws to limit their use. Vexithyra stared at the data in amazement. They are fighting against their own nature? It appears so. They recognize their capacity for violence but try to control it through social structures, laws, and moral codes. They have created elaborate systems to channel their aggressive instincts into less destructive activities. This revelation was the most disturbing yet. A species that was actively trying to evolve beyond its basic programming was unprecedented. What were humans becoming? And what would they become if they succeeded? As Vexithyra looked at the endless streams of data, she realized that humans were not just another intelligent species. They were something entirely new in the galaxy's history. The question was whether that made them valuable allies or the most dangerous threat the Empire had ever encountered. Zarnuk had been conducting his military analysis for a week when he finally called for a meeting. His expression was grim as Vexithyra and Kethmora joined him in the tactical center. I need to report my findings about human combat capabilities, he began. But I warn you, what I have discovered is deeply disturbing. Vexithyra settled into her chair. Proceed with your report. Zarnuk activated the holographic display. Images of human warfare filled the space around them. Humans have been engaged in continuous warfare for their entire recorded history, he said. Over 5,000 years of documented conflict. That is not unusual, Vexithyra noted. Most species have violent periods during their development. This is different, Zarnuk replied. Most species fight for territory, resources, or survival. Humans fight for abstract concepts that exist only in their minds. The display showed battles throughout human history. Ancient warriors with primitive weapons fighting over religious beliefs. Modern armies clashing over political systems. Civilians dying for concepts like freedom and democracy. They die for ideas, Zarnuk continued. Not just occasionally, but regularly and willingly. Millions of humans have sacrificed their lives defending principles that provide no physical benefit. Kethmora leaned forward. That confirms my behavioral observations. Their pack bonding extends to abstract concepts. It goes beyond bonding, Zarnuk said. They consider some ideas worth more than life itself. This makes them unpredictable in ways we have never encountered. The display changed to show human weapons development. Starting with sharp stones and wooden spears, the progression moved through metal blades, projectile weapons, explosives, and eventually to weapons of unimaginable destructive power. Their technological advancement has been driven primarily by military necessity, Zarnuk explained. Each major breakthrough in human technology has been adapted for warfare within years, sometimes months. Images of human nuclear weapons appeared. The mushroom-shaped explosions dwarfed anything in the Empire's arsenal except for planetary bombardment systems. These weapons can destroy entire cities, Zarnuk said. Humans developed them less than a century ago. They built enough to destroy their entire planet multiple times over. Did they use them? Vexithira asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Only twice. In the same conflict, Zarnuk replied. Then they stopped. This was the most disturbing revelation yet. Species that developed planet-killing weapons always used them. The temptation to gain absolute advantage was too strong for any rational mind to resist. Why did they stop? Vexithira asked. They became afraid of themselves, Zarnuk said. Humans realized their weapons could destroy everything they were fighting to protect. So they created elaborate systems to prevent their use while continuing to build more. The display showed the complex political and military structures humans had developed around their nuclear weapons. Treaties, inspections, and multiple fail-safe systems all designed to prevent the weapons from being used. They are simultaneously preparing for war and trying to prevent it, Zarnuk continued. This contradiction appears throughout human military history. More images filled the space. Humans had weaponized everything in their environment. Their vehicles could be converted to weapons. Their industrial chemicals could become explosives. Even their agricultural tools could be turned into instruments of war. They have developed over 400 distinct methods of killing, Zarnuk reported. But they have also created elaborate rules about when killing is acceptable. The display showed human military codes and rules of engagement, detailed guidelines about protecting civilians, treating prisoners, and minimizing unnecessary suffering. They make war humane? Vexithira asked in disbelief. They try to, Zarnuk replied. Humans have created laws governing warfare. They punish their own soldiers for violating these laws, even during active combat. This was beyond anything in the Empire's experience. Species fought to win, using whatever methods were most effective. The concept of voluntary limitations during warfare was completely foreign. Show me their current military capabilities, Vexithira ordered. The display changed to show modern human military forces. Advanced aircraft, ground vehicles, and naval vessels filled the screen. But what caught Zarnuk's attention were the individual soldiers. Human infantry are the most adaptable fighters I have ever studied, he said. They can operate in any environment their planet offers. Desert, jungle, mountain, underwater, even in the frozen regions near their poles. Images showed human soldiers in extreme conditions, fighting in blazing heat, bitter cold, and toxic environments that would kill most species. Their equipment is primitive by our standards, Zarnuk noted. But their tactics are sophisticated. They use terrain, weather, and even their enemies' psychology as weapons. The display showed examples of human military strategy. Deception, misdirection, and psychological warfare played major roles in human combat doctrine. They fight with their minds as much as their weapons, Zarnuk explained. Humans can convince their enemies to surrender without fighting, or they can make small forces appear larger through clever tactics. But it was human unit cohesion that truly disturbed Zarnuk. Video after video showed human soldiers risking death to save wounded comrades, refusing to abandon positions even when facing certain destruction, and fighting with desperate fury when protecting civilians. Their pack bonding becomes most evident during combat, he said. Human soldiers will die before allowing harm to come to their unit members. This makes them extremely difficult to defeat. How so? Vexithera asked. Most species break when facing superior force, Zarnuk explained. Survival instinct overcomes group loyalty, but humans often fight harder when facing impossible odds. They become more dangerous when desperate. The display showed battles where outnumbered human forces had achieved impossible victories through sheer determination and willingness to sacrifice themselves for others. There is something else, Zarnuk said hesitantly. Their medical corps. Images appeared of human military medics treating wounded soldiers under fire. What made it strange was that these medics often risked their own lives to save enemies as well as friends. They heal their enemies? Vexithera asked. According to their laws of war, wounded combatants become patients, regardless of which side they fought for, Zarnuk explained. Human medics have died protecting enemy wounded from their own forces. This behavior was so alien that Vexithera struggled to process it. Humans could kill efficiently and creatively, but they also saved lives with equal dedication. They were simultaneously the most violent and most compassionate warriors the galaxy had ever seen. What is your tactical assessment? Vexithera finally asked. Zarnuk was quiet for a long moment. Humans are not just another warrior species, he said slowly. They are something we have no experience dealing with. They fight for reasons we do not understand, using methods that contradict logic, with a level of commitment that defies survival instinct. Are they a threat to the Empire? I do not know, Zarnuk admitted. Their individual capabilities are limited compared to our technology, but their behavior patterns suggest they could become extremely dangerous if threatened. The military advisor paused, studying the data one more time. Commander, I recommend extreme caution. Humans are not predictable. They do not follow the behavioral patterns we use to assess other species. As the meeting ended, Vexithera remained in the tactical center, staring at the images of human warfare. These creatures were becoming more disturbing with each new discovery. What kind of species developed the ability to destroy themselves but chose restraint instead? What did it mean when warriors bound themselves with rules that made victory more difficult? And most troubling of all, what would happen when these unpredictable fighters discovered they were being watched? Kethmora had been running deep analysis programs for 2 weeks when he made the discovery that would change everything. His hands trembled as he stared at the results on his screen. This was impossible. It had to be a mistake. He ran the analysis again, then a third time. The results remained the same. Commander, he called, his voice shaking, I need you to see this immediately. Vexithera arrived quickly, noting the unusual distress in her science officer's voice. Zarnuk followed close behind. What have you found? Vexithera asked. I have been conducting deep geological and biological analysis of the human planet, Kethmora began. The results are disturbing beyond anything we have encountered. The main display activated, showing a cross-section of Earth's geological layers. Kethmora pointed to specific sections with markers. The planet's geological record shows at least 6 major extinction events in the past 500 million years, he explained. Each event destroyed between 70 to 95% of all life on the planet. That is unfortunate for the species that lived there, Vexithera said. But extinction events are not uncommon in the galaxy. Commander, you misunderstand, Kethmora replied. Humans survived all of these events. The room fell silent. Zarnuk was the first to speak. That is impossible. No species can survive multiple extinction events. The mathematics alone make it impossible. Kethmora brought up new data. I thought the same thing, so I analyzed human genetic material in detail. What I found explains everything about their behavior. The display showed complex genetic sequences and evolutionary trees. Humans carry genetic markers from multiple extinction events, Kathmora continued. Their DNA contains survival adaptations that only develop under extreme environmental pressure. More data filled the screen. But it gets worse. Humans do not just carry genetic material from their own evolutionary line. They have absorbed genetic sequences from at least 7 other hominid species. Absorbed? Vexthyra asked. Humans did not outcompete their evolutionary relatives, Kathmora explained. They interbreed with them. They incorporated the survival traits of every related species they encountered. They are not a single evolutionary line. They are a collection of survival traits from multiple species, combined into one organism. The implications of this were staggering. Humans were not just survivors. They were a species that had taken the best survival traits from everything around them and made those traits their own. Show me the environmental data again, Vexthyra ordered. Kathmora displayed the planetary analysis they had seen before, but now with new context. Earth is not just a death world, Commander. It is the death world. I have compared it to our database of 2,147 known worlds. Nothing approaches Earth's hostility to life. The data was overwhelming. Violent storms that could destroy cities. Geological activity that could split continents. Climate changes that could freeze or burn entire regions. Asteroid impacts that blocked sunlight for years. The planet tries to kill everything on it, Kathmora said. Regularly and repeatedly. Most species would have been eliminated by any one of these challenges. Humans faced all of them, simultaneously, for hundreds of thousands of years. How did they survive? Zarnuk asked. They adapted everything, Kathmora replied. Every challenge became a tool. Every threat became an advantage. Watch this. The display showed human responses to natural disasters throughout their history. Instead of simply fleeing or hiding, humans studied these events. They learned to predict earthquakes, track storms, and prepare for climate changes. They turned their hostile environment into a teacher, Kathmora explained. Every disaster taught them something new about survival. They built their entire civilization around preparing for the next catastrophe. More data appeared, showing human technology development. Their tools are designed for versatility and durability, Kathmora noted. Human technology must function in multiple environments under extreme conditions. This requirement has made them far more adaptable than species that developed on stable worlds. Vexthyra studied the information carefully. What about their social behaviors? The pack bonding we observed? Survival necessity, Kathmora replied immediately. No individual human could survive alone on their planet. They needed groups, cooperation, and mutual protection. But their environment was so dangerous that they extended this cooperation beyond their own species. The display showed examples of human-animal cooperation throughout their history. Humans formed alliances with other species as survival strategy, Kathmora explained. They domesticated predators to help with hunting. They used other species for transportation, food production, and early warning systems. The pack bonding we observed is not emotional behavior, he continued. It is a survival adaptation that allowed humans to turn every other life form on their planet into potential allies. This revelation made human behavior suddenly logical. They formed bonds with everything because their survival had depended on cooperation with everything. Show me their DNA again, Vexthyra requested. The genetic data reappeared. Kathmora highlighted specific sequences. Humans have genetic adaptations for surviving in extreme cold, extreme heat, high altitude, underwater environments, and toxic atmospheres, he said. No single environment on their planet could kill them all because they carry survival traits for every environment. What about their violent tendencies? Zarnuk asked. Necessary for survival, Kathmora replied. Earth has abundant life forms that view humans as prey. Humans had to become predators to survive. But they also had to maintain group cooperation. This created the contradiction we observed. The display showed human evolutionary development. Humans are simultaneously predators and prey, individuals and group members, violent and cooperative. These contradictions exist because their environment required all of these traits simultaneously. Vex Thyra felt a chill as the full implications became clear. "What are you saying about humans, Keth Mora?" "Commander, humans are not a normal evolutionary product," he said quietly. "They are what remains when everything else dies. They are the final result when a planet repeatedly tries to sterilize itself of life. They are apex survivors," he continued. "Every trait we found strange or disturbing is actually a survival adaptation. Their risk-taking behavior maintains the skills they needed to survive daily threats. Their pack bonding allowed them to form alliances with anything useful. Their violence gave them the ability to fight off predators and competitors." The data painted a terrifying picture. "Earth spent millions of years trying to kill humans," Keth Mora explained. "In response, humans became unkillable, not immortal, but adaptable beyond anything else in the galaxy. They survived by turning everything into a survival tool," he continued. "Other species, environments, disasters, even abstract concepts like hope and determination. Humans can adapt anything to help them survive." Zarnuk studied the military implications. "Their warfare patterns make sense now," he said slowly. "They fight for abstract concepts because those concepts help them survive. Cooperation, sacrifice for others, defending the group, these were all survival requirements." "Their restraint with nuclear weapons?" Vexithira asked. "Group survival instinct," Keth Mora replied. "Humans learned that some threats can destroy the entire group. Their weapons became too dangerous for their own survival, so they adapted their behavior to control them." The room fell silent as they processed this information. Humans were not just another intelligent species. They were something that should not exist by all known biological laws. "Commander," Keth Mora said quietly, "I need to show you one more thing." The display changed to show recent human space activities. Satellites, space stations, and early interplanetary missions appeared on screen. "Humans have begun expanding beyond their planet," Keth Mora noted. "They are actively working to establish colonies on other worlds in their system." The implications hit all three officers simultaneously. Humans were no longer contained by their death world. They were preparing to spread across space, carrying all their impossible survival traits with them. "What happens when they encounter other intelligent species?" Zarnuk wondered aloud. "Unknown," Keth Mora admitted, "but based on their history, they will probably try to form pack bonds with them." Vexithira stared at the data showing human expansion into space. These creatures had conquered the most hostile world in the galaxy. Now they were looking beyond their planet for new challenges. The question was no longer whether humans were a threat to the Empire. The question was whether anything in the galaxy could survive contact with them. Vexithira stood alone in her private chamber, staring out at the blue planet below. 3 weeks of observation had revealed more about humans than the Empire had learned about most species in years of contact. But the more they discovered, the more terrified she became. She activated her personal computer and began reviewing all the data they had collected. There had to be something they were missing. Some explanation that would make sense of these impossible creatures. The behavioral analysis filled her screen. Humans who risked their lives for strangers, pack bonding that extended to anything they encountered, recreational activities that mimicked survival challenges. The military assessment followed. Warriors who fought for abstract concepts, weapons capable of planetary destruction, controlled by elaborate moral systems, combat units that became more dangerous when protecting others. Finally, the scientific data. A species forged by repeated extinction events, genetic material absorbed from multiple evolutionary lines. survival adaptations that allowed them to thrive in any environment their death world could create. As Vexithyra reviewed the information, a horrifying pattern emerged. She began to understand what humans truly represented in the galaxy. The Empire had been expanding for thousands of years, encountering species on hundreds of worlds. Every intelligent race they had found shared certain characteristics. They had all evolved on relatively stable planets with predictable environments and manageable challenges. These garden world species developed intelligence through cooperation and resource management. They built civilizations based on logic, efficiency, and controlled growth. Their societies were predictable, their motivations understandable, and their reactions logical. Humans had evolved under completely different conditions. While other species learned to live in harmony with stable environments, humans learned to survive in chaos. While others developed intelligence to solve resource problems, humans developed intelligence to survive constant threats. The result was something entirely new in galactic history. Vexithyra activated the communication system and called for her officers. Within minutes, Kethmora and Zarnuk joined her. "I have been reviewing all our data," she began. "I believe I understand what we are facing." She activated the main display, showing comparative data from species throughout the Empire. Every intelligent species we have encountered followed similar evolutionary patterns, she explained. Stable environments led to predictable development. The display showed world after world of garden planets, mild climates, abundant resources, and manageable challenges had produced civilizations focused on growth and harmony. "Humans represent something unprecedented," Vexithyra continued. "They are the galaxy's first species to evolve under constant existential threat." The implications were staggering. While we learned to build and grow, humans learned to survive and adapt. While we developed logic and efficiency, humans developed determination and creativity. "What does this mean for the Empire?" Zarnuk asked. "It means we have no framework for understanding them," Vexithyra replied. "Our psychological models, our behavioral predictions, our military assessments, none of them apply to humans." She brought up new data comparing human responses to other species. When facing superior force, most species surrender or flee. Humans often fight harder. When confronted with impossible challenges, most species adapt their goals. Humans adapt their methods. "They do not think like us," she continued. "Their entire mental framework is based on overcoming impossibility rather than accepting limitations." Kethmora activated his console. "Commander, I have been monitoring human space activities. Their expansion pattern is disturbing." The display showed human satellites and space stations around their planet. "They are not expanding gradually like other species," Kethmora explained. "They are preparing for rapid colonization of multiple worlds simultaneously." "Survival instinct," Zarnuk noted. "They do not trust single locations after their planet taught them that anywhere can become uninhabitable." "There is more," Kethmora continued. "Human space technology shows the same adaptation principles we observed in their other activities. Their spacecraft are designed for versatility and survival, not efficiency." Images of human space vessels appeared. Unlike the specialized ships used by other species, human designs could function as exploration vehicles, cargo haulers, or emergency shelters depending on need. "They build everything as if they expect it to face impossible challenges," Vexithyra observed. "Because they do," Zarnuk replied. "Their entire civilization is based on preparing for the next catastrophe." As they studied the data, Vexithyra realized the true horror of their situation. "The Empire has spent thousands of years learning to manage stable civilizations," she said slowly. "We have no experience dealing with a species that thrives on chaos and adapts to impossibility." "What are you saying, Commander?" Kethmora asked. "I am saying that humans represent something the galaxy has never seen before," Vexthyra replied. They are not just another intelligent species seeking resources or territory. They are something that turns challenges into opportunities and obstacles into advantages. The communication console suddenly activated with an urgent signal. Commander, the duty officer's voice came through. We are receiving transmissions directed at our location. Vexthyra felt ice form in her veins. From where? The human planet, Commander. They are transmitting in multiple frequencies, including some that match our own communication systems. The bridge fell silent. After 3 weeks of passive observation, they had been discovered. How is this possible? Zarnuk demanded. Our stealth systems are beyond their technology level. Kethmora was already analyzing the situation. Commander, humans have been launching detection satellites throughout their observation period. Not military satellites, scientific ones. They have been systematically scanning their local space. They detected us by accident? Vexthyra asked. I do not think so, Kethmora replied, studying the data. The satellite placement pattern suggests they were specifically looking for artificial objects in their system. This was impossible. Humans should not have suspected alien observation. There was no logical reason for them to search for hidden spacecraft. Unless, Vexthyra said slowly, they always assume they are being watched. The full implications hit her like a physical blow. Humans had survived on a planet where everything was potentially dangerous. They had learned to assume that any unknown factor could be a threat requiring investigation. Show me the transmissions, she ordered. The alien communication filled the bridge. But instead of demands or threats, the human messages were greetings, multiple languages, mathematical sequences, and what appeared to be cultural information. They are trying to communicate peacefully, Kethmora noted with amazement. They spotted unknown visitors in their space, and their first response is to try making friends, Zarnuk added with disbelief. Vexthyra stared at the ongoing transmissions. After everything they had learned about human survival instincts and combat capabilities, their first response to potential aliens was attempted friendship. Commander, Kethmora said quietly, there is something else. The transmissions include gift coordinates. What do you mean? They are directing us to specific locations where they have placed objects they describe as friendship offerings. Material samples of their culture, technology, and art. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place for Vexthyra. Humans had detected unknown visitors, and their immediate response was not fear or aggression, but an attempt to establish positive contact. They want to pack bond with us, she whispered. The horror of their situation became clear. The Empire had discovered a species that could survive anything, adapt to everything, and had just identified the Empire's presence, and their first instinct was to try making friends. What do we do, Commander? Zarnuk asked. Vexthyra looked at the peaceful transmissions still streaming from the planet below. Humans were reaching out to them with offerings of friendship and cultural exchange. These were creatures that had survived repeated extinction events, conquered the most hostile world in the galaxy, and developed weapons capable of destroying planets. They had proven they could fight anything and survive everything, and they wanted to be friends. Prepare a message to Imperial Command, Vexthyra ordered. Priority Alpha classification. What should it say? Kethmora asked. Vexthyra looked once more at the blue planet, where impossible creatures were preparing friendship gifts for alien visitors they had detected in their space. Tell them we have found something unprecedented, she said. A species that evolved in hell and calls it home. Warriors who fight for abstract concepts and bind themselves with moral laws. Survivors who have conquered extinction and now want to share their achievements with others. She paused, watching more friendly transmissions arrive from the human planet. Tell them we have found the galaxy's first species that can survive anything, she continued. And they want to be our friends. Recommend immediate policy review for first contact procedures. And our immediate orders? Zarnuk asked. Vexithira watched as humans prepared their friendship offerings for unknown alien visitors. After everything her people had learned about human capabilities, their greatest fear was not human hostility. Their greatest fear was human friendship. Because when the species that had conquered hell offered friendship, the galaxy would never be the same again. Maintain position and prepare for contact, she ordered. Humans have found us, and they want to talk. The question was whether the Empire was ready for what humans had to say.